Testing, testing.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool. Let's go.
Whew, what a week it's been.
Truly. I'm Alex.
And I'm Emily, and welcome to What a Week.
You want it, we got it. We're bringing you the top news and pop culture stories you need to be in the know.
Let's dive right in. So we're going to kick it off with our first segment, entertainment.
And there's people that are dying.
Entertainment Roundup.
So how can we talk about entertainment and not bring up the Bachelorette premiere?
Oh my gosh.
So, disclaimer, I am not a big Bachelor fan. I dabble in it. I tip my toe in and then I tip it out because I'm just a person who knows I will get obsessed with trash reality shows, and I just don't know if I completely agree with the Bachelor, everything the Bachelor does, and not really being that inclusive. Whatever, that's not the point. The point is the Bachelorette premiered, and finally Bachelor Nation got to see Clare Crawley begin her Bachelorette journey, and well, it was interesting. Because of COVID, this season wasn't shot at the Bachelor Mansion. It was actually shot in a bubble in La Quinta in the Palm Springs area. So, years past, this year's entrances were unique. So, one guy, Ed, took the whole being in a bubble thing literally and rolled up in an actual bubble. Another guy, Jay, showed up in a straitjacket, like the ones you wear in a hospital or in jail. And another guy literally wore a night outfit. But perhaps the most memorable of them all was Dale, who took Claire's breath away after meeting her. And when he left, Claire literally said, quote, "I knew it. Definitely feel like I just met my husband. I'm shaking." So let's see what ends up happening. There's been rumors since before the show even premiered that Claire left last second because she found love early, and then that Taisha Adams would take over as Bachelorette. Obviously, they haven't confirmed anything because they want to hype it up, right? So we'll see what happens and if Dale actually is the one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I am in the same boat as you. I have problems with The Bachelor, but at my old job at E, I live tweeted The Bachelor, so I'm very, well-versed in Bachelor stuff. I had to live tweet it for my job this year as well. And it's just it's a lot of the same, but I will say what excites me about this episode, and I'm someone who likes spoilers. I will look at the spoilers. I haven't really this year. I've just heard the rumors and stuff, but I mean, they alluded to it. You saw her saying when he walked in, "Oh, that's my husband." And it's I like how they tried to make it seem oh, she's never seen this guy before. But it's this season was unlike any others because they were going to go film and then all this happened and quarantine happened and everything. So they weren't able to, but her names all got released. So she was kind of able to be okay, who's cute? Who do I want to talk to? Mm-hmm. So, exactly. I mean, I love how they didn't talk about it on the show, but we know that there had to have been communication between her and Dale.
Exactly.
So we'll see what transpires.
We will see what happens, but he's cute.
He's cute. I mean,
so
I'm not mad at her. I mean, I approve, but yeah, it'll be very interesting to see.
All right, so next up, we're sticking with reality TV. If you've been keeping up with the Kardashians this season, you definitely know that Kendall and Kylie got in a major fight 2 episodes ago. I'm not going to talk about the whole thing because it can take the whole episode if I really get into it. But long story short, the family took a trip to Palm Springs for the weekend, and at the end of their trip, the girls went to a drag show. And Kendall was kind of not really down for this drag show, so she stayed in the car and assumed Kylie would take her home. The gray area, unsure if she ever asked Kylie and if she said yes. But long story short, when Kylie gets back, she's had a little bit too much to drink because all the sisters were partying at the drag show. Kendall's "Oh, so can we put my address in so they can drop me off?" And Kylie's "No, why would I drop you off?" And Kendall's I thought you were gonna drop me off. And then we don't see it on camera, which really sucks, but like they're literally like yelling at each other. And Kylie's like, why the F would I take you home to Beverly Hills when I live in Calabasas, which is like such a first world problem. But and I apologize, I tie-dyed. So like if you're watching the YouTube, like my hands are blue and I look like a Smurf because I was tie-dyeing this week. But anyways, it's such a first world problem, but like honestly, if you're from LA, it's a mission to drop people off.
Yeah,
like,
that's far. That's
like
very far.
Calabasas to Beverly Hills was like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. Anyways, long story short, they got in a massive fight. Allegedly, according to Kendall, Kylie shoved her heel on her neck because apparently Kendall slapped her after Kylie slapped her first. It's a lot of like she said, whatever. And Corey Gamble, Chris's boyfriend of 6 years, was in the car with Kendall and Kylie. And apparently, according to Kendall, he didn't help anything with the situation and told her to fuck off or something. And so it's just like it's a lot. It's a lot of he said, she said. We weren't there. We just heard them yelling at each other because I think Courtney was calling them. So it's kind of crazy. So now we're back to this week's episode, and Kendall's pissed. Kylie's still mad, and Corey calls Kendall to kind of like talk things out. And Kendall's expecting an apology, and he doesn't apologize, and he ends up calling her. Well, he doesn't call her an asshole. He says, you know, you can be an ass sometimes. And she didn't take that well, which I get. So I guess my question to you is like, what do we think about this? Like, should Corey have said that to Kendall? Like, should he have just apologized and kind of just for the better of the family? Or was he valid in saying, like, Kendall, you can kind of be an ass sometimes?
Okay, I will say you will be very impressed with me. So the other day when I was working on our prop coverage, which you can find on our Instagram, I actually had Keeping Up with the Kardashians in the background. I was just like, I need something on. I had just like had CNN on, but I was like, I want something like more lighthearted while I do this. So I put it on. And so I actually kind of saw a little bit of this go down. Like I wasn't fully paying attention, but I did see it. I mean, like, Kendall, I just, like, she's never been my favorite, personally. Like, I saw the part where she was like, oh, I'm not gonna go in, I'm so tired, and it was just like, why'd you go anyway in the first place? So, that's my question. But I can understand wanting to go home, and also, like, Kylie could have easily had her driver take her home. Like, they have money to do so. So I don't know the whole situation, but I would say I'm probably I would probably be the Kylie in this situation, but I'm probably team Kendall.
I feel like I would be the Kendall in the situation, getting mad that somebody wouldn't be able to drop me home. But I understand. It's kind of difficult because, like, Kendall the whole weekend, like, even before they went to Palm Springs, she's like, I don't want to go. And she ends up going and is kind of like a Debbie Downer the whole time. And then, like you said, like, they go to dinner before they go to the drag show. And she's just like, oh my God, I wish I could have gone home early with Scott, but he only had a 2-seater. And, like, Kendall was already kind of fired up because Kylie took her outfit that she wanted to wear. I know, first world problems. And so it's kind of just like, you were being a Debbie Downer, like, you didn't want to be there in the first place, so, like, it was bound to happen. I think they were bound to fight at some point, but also, like, to the point, like, just drop her off. Like, you're not actually driving, Kylie. It's your driver. You're probably going to be asleep in the car. Like, you're not even going to notice, and it's at night, so, like, just drop her off, and this could have been, but I really feel bad for Chris, because I feel like when you have 6 kids and you have a boyfriend, like, the boyfriend's not going to get along with all the kids. And obviously Kendall is the one who he doesn't vibe with. So I kind of feel bad because now she's stuck in the middle. And I feel like, you know, sometimes I'm sure Kendall can be an ass. And I don't think he probably should have said that in that moment. I think he probably should have just taken the high road and apologized. But now we have more content for next week. So I don't know about it.
Definitely.
And our last story in the entertainment segment. This story is kind of interesting. So, actress Lily James was spotted with actor Dominik West displaying some PDA in Rome while filming a miniseries in England titled The Pursuit of Love. So, the movie shot in England, but they were in Rome, just like hanging out. And so, the pictures were originally released by the Daily Mail, and they show them on an electric scooter and having an intimate lunch together in Rome. In other pictures, Dominik is kissing Lily's cheek. Several eyewitnesses told several publications, including E! News, that Dominik grabbed Lily's butt at a nearby church, and the two kissed goodbye.
At a church?
I know, at a church!
Oh my god.
Like, why couldn't you get handsy outside the church?
I know. Anyway. Like, couldn't go down to, like, the McDonald's across the street.
The gelato store? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, so they kissed before they parted ways, and the thing is, this wouldn't be an issue, but Dominik's married. He has been married to an Irish landscaper, Catherine Fitzgerald, since 2010, so for 10 years. And the story kind of gets a little bit more weird. So after this story broke, Catherine and Dominik came out and kind of had like a press conference where they kissed in front of reporters, and Catherine wrote like a little sign that basically was like, our marriage is doing great.
Oh.
So now people are saying like, he wasn't wearing a wedding ring in any of these pictures with Lily, so people are like, are they in an open relationship or like what? People are just confused. And also like in the pictures, like Dominik is like, I'll pull him up if you're watching the YouTube, but like when he's kissing his wife, he's really like, his body language is just not towards her. Like he's like she's kissing him and her body language is towards him, and he's kind of like pulled away, and then like and then there's a picture of him like smirking.
Oh my god.
And so it's just like weird.
Oh, this is not an open relationship. Oh my god, he's totally having a full affair. And she was like, no, you can't do it. You have to be with me. Like, take your stance, like whatever. And then body language, he wants to be with Lily James. We solved it. I mean, that's bad.
It's just so bizarre, like how they went about it, like going out, and they live in like a castle.
Wow.
So they're like outside their castle, like kissing for the photographers, and you know that obviously they did it for. It's just so bizarre.
Well, moving on to our next segment.
News.
Okay, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the fact that the second debate ended up being canceled, the second presidential debate. Basically, obviously, we all know Trump got coronavirus, and it was set to be a virtual debate, but Trump was not down for that, so it got canceled. So instead, Trump and Biden each participated in a town hall, and there were some standout moments that I really want to discuss. Okay, so first of all, given the quick turnaround in trying to confirm Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, Biden was asked at his town hall if he would expand the Supreme Court if and when he's in office. And he said, it depends, quote, how much they rush this. But he will give us an answer before Election Day, which is kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see, because I didn't realize the Supreme Court doesn't need to have 9 people. It can have more, it can have less. Yeah, it's like not in the Constitution. I heard this on an NPR podcast, so I'm like, I may not be saying it correctly, but it's like not in the Constitution for it to be a set 9. That's kind of just how it ended up like happening the past however many years.
But it should be an odd number though, right? I mean, because the whole point is like there can't be an even number, because then...
I would think so too, and I wonder like, because at that point, if it's at 10, it'd be a little less of a majority, but still more conservative. But then if you bring the other, wouldn't there be more? Split. Yeah, it'd be split. Oh, see, so that's interesting. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens. I mean, what his decision is. We'll find that out before Election Day.
And if this can even happen, because then obviously the Senate and the House would have to like vote on it. And if the House is still, if Congress is still majority Republican, like it doesn't matter what Biden wants. So you guys gotta get out there and vote.
Yes, vote, because it'll be interesting to see what happens. And then the biggest thing of that night, obviously QAnon is such a huge topic of conversation, especially in 2020. If you're unfamiliar, it's a far-right conspiracy group, and they're the ones behind the false conspiracy theories that a ton of politicians and celebrities are part of a sex trafficking ring, and among many other conspiracy theories. And the FBI named them a domestic terrorism threat in 2019. So at the town hall, Trump was asked if he would disavow QAnon and reject its followers' belief that he is the savior against Democrats running a satanic pedophile ring. Trump claimed he didn't know anything about QAnon, but he then praised their work against pedophilia, and he refused to say the conspiracy theory was false. So it was a very, like, you could tell it was a very calculated response. Like, he was like, oh, I don't know them, but I hear they do great work. Like, that's kind of the vibe he was giving, which is obviously absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I know. It's just like, it's ridiculous. But something I have to share that's kind of a little tiny bit of internet culture story for this week is that TikTokers were planning to watch Biden's town hall. They were all plotting to do this and kind of watch it on multiple different streams because they were saying like, oh, we don't want Trump to brag that like he got more viewership. Like we don't want him to have this one thing. And in the end, Biden's town hall, almost got 1 million more views. So moving on to our next news topic, we just want to reiterate how much COVID is still impacting our communities. There has been 8 million cases in the United States with more than 217,000 deaths. We're seeing tens of thousands of new cases per day, with hundreds of new deaths each day. Kind of the projected number is by December 1st, we could see 300,000 deaths in America because of this. So Dr. Fauci said a vaccine likely won't be widely available until next summer and fall. And normal life probably won't resume until the end of 2021, which, I mean, we're still more than a year away from that, really, from any sort of sense of normalcy. So part of this new uptick in cases, because, I mean, we're still in the first wave, people, let me be clear, but kind of the cases are starting to uptick again once kind of what they did over summer as well. And part of this new uptick in cases is due to a lot of schools all over the country being open. So to explore just that, we have a guest today. We are joined by Jack Molmud, a digital journalist covering colleges and coronavirus at CBS 8 San Diego. Also, for transparency, he's my boyfriend and he's currently in the same apartment as me, but that's okay. Okay, so can you tell us about your coverage at CBS 8?
Yeah. So I have a lot of tasks at CBS 8, but a lot of my own coverage that I report on has to do with local universities around San Diego County and how they are handling coronavirus on their campus, whether that's with on-campus housing or students that live in congregate settings off campus. All of their different settings fluctuate, and it's interesting to look at how the different sizes of universities and all of these different factors that come into play affect each college differently.
So what's going on at college campuses? Like, why did it get to this point?
Well, overall, nationwide, I feel like colleges, we see similar trends overall. I mentioned that they are different here in San Diego County, but they all kind of follow the same kind of pattern. They have to hit certain benchmarks of testing. Some colleges don't do much testing at all, while other ones do extensive testing. And I think nationwide, we're seeing different rates of it fluctuate depending on the different measures that colleges take. And you have a lot of colleges that are faring very badly. Some of them are racking up thousands of cases on their campuses. Like University of Texas has thousands of cases. There was a state college in New York recently which logged 700 cases, which is a sizable amount of students who got sick. And from those 700 cases of students, the president of the university actually resigned. And so it's really showing a lot of vulnerability on top of these institutions. Colleges behave a lot like small local governments, and they could pretty much control and take care of these students and have to report on certain demographics, certain statistics of their students. And something like a global pandemic is really highlighting a lot of either the strongholds or the gaps in university leadership. And a place like that university in New York is showing that the leadership there may be lacking. On a local level in San Diego, we have college campuses where they're recording maybe just a few dozen cases of the virus, like CSU San Marcos or UC San Diego. And then you have a school like San Diego State University, which has the most amount of coronavirus cases out of any other university in the entire state. They have more than 1,200 confirmed or probable cases of the virus just among students. Faculty, I think, is only just about a dozen or so, but it's a very glaring issue that really hasn't had quite a lot of answers given to it here on the local level as to why San Diego State is doing so horribly with these amounts of cases. And the daily amount that's added onto their list of student cases has gone down, but it's still increasing. So it's still a glaring issue that, quite frankly, doesn't really have a lot of answers right now.
Wow. I mean, do you think that has to do with a campus's culture? I mean, we all graduated from San Diego State University, but we know it has that reputation as a party school.
Yeah, I think the campus culture really does come into play. You look at a campus like CSU San Marcos, which is about 40 minutes north of here, and that is not a party school. It's a commuter school. You still have students that live off campus, yes, and you still have some students that do live on campus, but they've been able to keep their levels of the virus relatively low due to a smaller population. A place like San Diego State is known for its parties, and actually, in my reporting, I found that the parties have not gone away. Students are still partying. It's been documented. We've recorded it on video. Police have been called to parties off campus. This is happening, and the university, quite frankly, doesn't really have a way to control this until recently. San Diego State recently announced that they got new guidance from the Office of the CSU, which will allow them now to target individual students that live off campus who are violating health code. Before, the only time in which San Diego State could intervene off campus is when it had to do with a fraternity or another registered student organization. Now they could go ahead and target individual violations. So it remains to be seen if this will actually have any effect, as we've seen parties still go on. And just this past weekend, there was a party documented near campus that is reportedly affiliated with a fraternity on campus. And you saw more than 100 students there packed together like sardines, maskless, crowding the streets. And in my interviews done with neighbors that live in the college area, this thing happens pretty much every single week. So it's kind of painful to watch coming from a university that, again, has the most amount of coronavirus cases out of any other college in California.
Wow. I mean, on that topic of last weekend, why don't you tell us about your latest story you did for CBS 8?
Right. So the original poster of that video posted the screen recording of somebody's Instagram story onto Twitter. And it's very much like it's interesting to see like a screen recording of a screen recording sent to somebody on Twitter to post from an Instagram story. So it's very convoluted. And we weren't really willing to put it on air to broadcast it because of usage rights. Somebody filmed it themselves and it was on their private Instagram. So us ripping that video and putting on our own broadcast was kind of hard to cover. So I decided to write an article about it where I just kind of embedded the tweet. And I spoke with the person who posted the video, not originally, but the one who shared it on Twitter. And he's a student employee on campus, and he said this thing happens all the time. But the one key issue here was that this was recorded on video, and this had identifiable faces in the video. And San Diego State actually responded to the video over Twitter and said they're looking into the incident. And just recently in their latest email sent out to the campus community, they confirmed that this was indeed in the college area. And I pretty much delved into that, talked with the person who posted the video, reported on these parties that just keep happening and students blatantly disregarding health order. I also talked to a neighbor who lives in the college area. The college area is just a small community that lives nearby campus. And it's a mix between students who live in big houses and families which have lived there for decades. And a lot of these families that have lived there are tired of students just living in that same neighborhood and partying and ruining their sleep, their peace, harassing them even. One of the neighbors that I talked to said that a student, she said it was a student. There's no way for me to really prove that it was a student right now, but she said it was a student who knocked on her door drunk and was yelling for her to let her in and yelling expletives at her. And he said that if she didn't let him in, he was going to kill her. Again, he was drunk and was probably not seeing anything, but that's still a valid threat, and it woke her up, and she had to send her son out there. When her son walked out there, she said the student had a brick and was hitting it against her garage, and he eventually passed out unconscious on her front lawn, and then the paramedics ended up taking him away. and she ended up finding bloodstains on her fence the next day. And she said this isn't anything new. She said that this is stuff that just happens when you're living in the college area. So even before the pandemic, I think San Diego State has had a glaring issue with parties, but being able to write about it in that sense and highlighting that kind of just makes it a double whammy when you're looking at a global pandemic, which in fact has actually sent a San Diego State student to the hospital about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago.
And it's really interesting too, because you're so right. Like, San Diego State is a party school. It's had this issue for such a long time. Like, just it also, like, fraternities always find loopholes, right? Because sororities never have the parties. It's always the frats. But they always find these loopholes of like, oh, it's not a fraternity party because it's at a satellite house and there's no frat letters or anything. And so it's like this kind of gray area. So like, now that they're able to actually target individuals and not just frats, is like, hopefully will make a huge impact. But that's just terrible that somebody knocked on this woman's door at night and threatened to kill her, which it's so terrible, but it's also like, I'm not surprised. Like, having gone to SDSU, you're just like, people are freaking crazy and just have no respect for other people's lives who don't go to San Diego State.
I think that San Diego State is taking a very reactive approach to this situation. I would not go out to say that they were proactive in the slightest to prevent this. They did not test students when they first moved in, which now we know through new guidance from the CDC literally says that the colleges who are performing the best have done extensive testing. Tests upon tests, multiple tests, bi-weekly tests, tests to faculty, tests before you come, quarantine periods. And San Diego State didn't do any of that. And I think that then again, you look at the issue that a lot of colleges who have handled this well, who were able to provide extensive testing, are also either UCs or private colleges. So they do kind of have more funding to supply these tests. But now we look at San Diego State, 1,200 cases in, they are now instituting mandatory testing, bi-weekly testing. And so now I'm questioning, they could do this now that 1,200 students tested positive, but they couldn't do this in the beginning. And the CDC, like I said, has put out guidance that said this extensive testing does help with the contact tracing. It helps curb it puts a timestamp every single time a student is not sick. Because every single time you take a test, it's like a photograph of like a little point in time in which either positive or negative. And doing that multiple times while you're living in a campus community is very crucial to understanding how to track an outbreak. And that's something that San Diego State didn't do. But you look at a school like UC San Diego, which has insane testing. They have smartphone apps that will let you know if a student in your area has tested positive or somebody in your dorm has tested positive. So they're able to have a lot more like leaving like a little crumb trail, so they could backtrack if anything ever happens. And UC San Diego is reporting maybe like 1 to 4 cases a day, and they also have about 9,000 students living on their campus, about 3 times the amount of students that are living at San Diego State. So they have more students living there and recording less cases overall than San Diego State.
Crazy.
I mean, that's something, it's like we just talked about before this interview, but Dr. Fauci is saying life probably won't be normal until the end of next year. And it's one of those things where like at this point, we have to wait for a vaccine that's like, and mask wearing, of course, and all this. It's just like, what else do we do? So just like in a community level or just the whole country level, even going that high up, like I don't see an end of this. So kind of looking at it on a more micro level at a university, can schools find a way out of this? Or do they also have to wait at this point because it's so widespread, especially at somewhere like SDSU? Do they have to wait also the way the rest of the country has to wait?
I'd say yes and no. I think that each university has their own kind of plate of food to eat at this point. They have their own situations to kind of deal with. A lot of it, they have however number of cases they have in their own communities. I feel like a campus like San Diego State, and there's a lot of them around the nation, that are left with more than 1,000 cases of students, parties near campus that are still going on. At this point now, like, the damage has been done. And even though the cases are still slowly tacking up, they're still increasing, and they're still here. So there's a few things that they could do. One of them is waiting and continue to be advocates for staying indoors and staying safe and not going to parties. Another thing that I touched on too is implementing increasingly extensive testing. Like that is one of the keys that I've seen in successful college situations, is absolute extensive testing. And even San Diego State, the president, Adela de la Torre, said during a press conference about a month ago that they decided that it was not worth their time to test students when they first moved to campus, because they might have gotten sick on their way to campus or during their time of travel. So why are we testing them before they come anyway? But then you have other campuses where they did do testing and they did do quarantine periods, and they fared much better. And Adela de la Torre and other top university officials defended their choice in not instituting testing. But to quote another campus official there, Dr. Jay Lukewood, he also said, "It's easy to play Tuesday morning quarterback after Monday Night Football's over. It's easy to look back and point fingers." But that's true, that a lot of these campuses did kind of have to make these choices on their own. It starts from the top level of government in terms of guidance as to like how to navigate this. And the coronavirus situation, on the grand scheme of things, has been fairly left up to the states and large cities to decide what to do. So then you're left with a lot of universities who do behave like a lot of local governments, having to make these big time decisions for themselves. So a lot of them are bound to screw up, and because they're just universities, they're not the federal government, and this guidance didn't come from the federal government. It had to come from states. It had to come from cities, and the colleges were left to come up with this decision. So it starts with the leadership, and I think that they have to play a waiting game now. They have to continue to be advocates, institute extensive testing, look at what works, work with the county, work with local levels of government to do contact tracing, and really just share the burden of having to handle this.
I mean, just a quick thing, my opinion as not running anything. But it's just, that just shows how from every level, from the top in our country to universities, every level, I mean, it's like a precedent was set and people are just trying to hope for the best instead of being overly prepared and putting in the resources to do it. And that's kind of unfortunate that we've seen kind of the impacts of that, obviously, in huge ways. I mean, from just people catching it to people dying from it. It's awful.
And I mean, to piggyback off what you said too, I also think it comes down to money. Mm-hmm. I mean, having gone to San Diego State and having news editor of the Daily Aztec, I know San Diego State's all about that money. Yeah. And they, of course, like, part of me is like, was part of the reason also, like, you guys just didn't want to invest all this money in testing. So you're like, screw it. Like, let's just hope they don't get sick. But like, if you are the president of San Diego State, you know you are the president of a party school. Mm-hmm. And you know that these kids are coming here to party and to see each other and to hang out. Like, so you would think like they would be more proactive about it. But part of me is just like, was one of the factors. Like, we just don't want to invest so much in testing right now.
Totally. I mean, yeah, even the argument, like, well, they're traveling here anyway. If they get it, they get it. But wouldn't you think that's the exact pivotal point you wouldn't want to bring it in your community? I don't know. I mean, but that information was very useful. So thank you for coming on the show. But it's that time of the episode now. We're going to get into our good stories of the week. And since we have a guest with us who usually shares a good story on our episode, why don't you share your good story of the week?
Well, I've been trying to become more well-rounded in my daily ventures, and I used to swim a whole lot back in community college. I swam and played water polo there, and I haven't been doing much swimming at all, but I've been swimming out in the open water out in Coronado Bay. Gonna go later today, and I also ran and biked today. So, and I've also been stirring in my mind that I kind of want to do an open water swim sometime next year, like a competition.
Wow, good for you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
We got a good story from a viewer, Erin Samuel. She says, happy that she has a roof over her head, food on the table, and a job. And I think that's something we should all be very grateful for. That's great news of the week.
Yeah, that is a good one. Because I'm not thankful for my things. Okay. Next from Jamie, who you may recognize her as our first guest on here. She said, I got my What a Week sticker in the mail. So remember, we're selling those. Can you flash everyone? We're selling these. We're selling these for $5. So
my smart pants not included.
Yeah.
Our next one is from Megan Healy. She is a anchor and reporter up in a station in San Luis Obispo, and her good news of the week is someone asked for my autograph. It was the first person to ever ask for an autograph, so that's awesome.
I can't wait till we get on that level.
I know. Feel free to ask. We'll send you one. On the back of a sticker. We can sign the stickers.
Ooh, that's a good plan.
Oh.
Okay, next we have DJ Flashback, who said, I got a new car and I got my ballot in the mail. I love that. That's kind of exciting to have a new car.
I love that. That's great news. Our next one is from Olivia. She says, I went on a bike ride to watch the sunset and got to see some live jazz on my ride home. That sounds amazing.
That's nice. That's really nice. Okay, next, Rosalind said, I finally took my own advice and did some self-care by going to the beach. That's nice, and that's a good thing. I don't take my own advice either. I should start doing that. I'm always like, everyone implement self-care, and then I don't do that.
Then you're stressed.
Yeah, exactly.
Kelly Bricky says, I'm officially employed after being laid off due to COVID-19 back in March. Woohoo!
Woo!
So happy for you.
And then next, my mom submitted some good news of the week. For the first time, submitted it. She said, from Ellen, I have a 90-year-old friend that had back surgery about a month ago. Has been having a very rough recovery. Thought she was fading away. This week, with medication adjustments, she has taken an upswing. All looks much more hopeful. That's sweet. Thank you for sharing, Mom. And thank you all for sharing your news. And thank you, Jack, for being on this episode. This has been a fun episode.
This is so much fun. And I just dropped my phone. This has been so much fun. And as always, if you like what we're doing, make sure you follow us on social media. You can watch the show in full with graphics and everything on our YouTube channel at What a Week with Alex and Emily. Or you can also support us and donate by going to Patreon and, becoming one of our Patreons, or by buying a sticker. You guys, this really means a lot.
Yes. Yeah, just Venmo at Alex Piscatelli to buy a sticker. You can also find us on social media. We're on Instagram at What a Week Show. By the way, election's still coming up. We have all the props laid out on our Instagram, so go check it out there. And then you can find us on Twitter at What a Week Show _.
And we have a TikTok.
Yes, we have a TikTok too. I forget we have that. But yeah, follow us. What a Week Show _ Yeah, exactly. And we're What a Week Show _ on there.
So thank you guys so much for all your love and support. Really appreciate it. Make sure you follow us everywhere and send us your good stories of the week next week.
Yes. Bye, guys.
Have a good week. Bye.